Day three, everyone. How are you doing? Technically, this is your second full day of not eating. So, how did the first day go? Was it difficult? Was it easier than you thought? I know when I did my first 24-hour fast, it was easier than I thought, but still challenging. I think the biggest difficulty is this really does affect your sleep a lot of times. So most people will experience difficulty sleeping. You might feel wide awake. This does provide a little bit of a stress on the body by not eating. It's a good stress, it's a hormetic stress, but it does raise that cortisol a little bit nonetheless, which can affect your sleep. If you are doing this fast to help train your body to fast, and you're not necessarily in it for the immune reset, or that's your goal in the future. Before you go to bed, you could take a teaspoon of honey, and literally just a teaspoon, not a tablespoon or big spoon of it, but just take a teaspoon of honey right before you go to bed. That will give you just enough sugar, and the honey has some healing benefits to your gut, but that will help relieve some of that hormetic stress on the body and will decrease the cortisol a little bit. So hopefully you can at least sleep. So just a suggestion if that is something that you're dealing with. Another thing that people deal with often is being very cold. When you don't have that internal fire from your gut, from digestion, you can get really cold. So a lot of people have found it helpful to actually have a scarf on. So you might need to bundle up a little bit more, but having a scarf around your neck actually warms your body the fastest more than anything else because that's where the most blood flow is going through your veins and your arteries right in your neck, and you have the most amount of blood there. So if you warm that area, that's what's going to circulate throughout your body and help warm it up. So that's another suggestion to help deal with the cold. So hope you guys are doing good. Hang in there. A lot of times this day is the hardest where the hunger really persists. So really try to have those distraction techniques in place. What are you going to do when you have those hunger moments? You can take a bath, go for a walk, get involved in a project, clean something. That's usually my go-to. So just some suggestions on how to deal with that. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is our hormones. So this is really geared more towards women. So men are typically on a 24-hour hormonal uh, cycle and really just have testosterone. So men make testosterone, and that testosterone goes up into the brain and turns into estrogen. So you do have the sex hormones that women do as well, but you're on a different cycle and your body processes it differently. Because of that, men can typically fast regularly, consistently, without change. Women really need to formulate their eating habits and their exercise and lifestyle habits according to their hormones. Now, this is going to be a lot of new information for you if you're unfamiliar with Dr. Mindy. But and this can be challenging because it's difficult to say, okay, well, for the next 10 days, I'm going to eat like this, and then I need to switch what I'm eating. And that's very challenging if you're just trying to do day to day, you know, a menu for your family and making things simple and easy. So I understand that this is a challenge, but that doesn't mean that isn't what your body needs. And I think that's the biggest theme that has resonated with me is just because I don't like it doesn't mean it isn't true and what I need to do. So just something to keep in mind as I go through this when you're like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to eat differently every 10 days. But so I wrote these things down because I don't want to miss anything. So we have four phases, and this is women will be very familiar with this. You know, you have the phase like right after you have your period, then you go for several days, your 10 to 15 days, and then you're ovulating. Then you start to prepare for your period again. So you have four phases. Dr. Mindy changed the names a little bit just so they were a little easier to understand. So you have the first power phase, you have a manifestation phase, which would be ovulation. For the next 5 days after ovulation, you have another power phase. And then for the final, uh, possibly up to 10 days, you have what's called the nurture phase, and that's in preparation for getting your period. So the first phase, the power phase, this is when estrogen is coming in. So you get your period and estrogen starts to build. That is when insulin is the most sensitive or the most important to be insulin sensitive. Now, we talked about insulin resistance a little bit. So, this again is going to be a process, but this is how you can help get back to balancing your hormones again, is with that insulin control. So, the best way to promote estrogen production in the body is being insulin sensitive. So, this means eating that ketobiotic diet that I kind of mentioned. So, you want to be very low carb, so high protein, high fat, but you still need nutrients. So that's where the ketobiotic part comes in. A lot of keto diets say like 20 grams or less of carbs. And that's really extreme because that even cuts out, fruits and vegetables. So really, you want 50 grams or less of net carbs. And if you're unfamiliar with calculating net carbs, if you are an ingredient label reader, you take the total carbs, the amount of fiber, subtract that, and that's your net carbs. So fiber in foods really help lower that carbohydrate load on the body. So that's where you want to eat your vegetables, fruits. You can keep your fruits minimal, but some ketobiotic friendly fruits would be berries, actually. They're actually lower on the glycemic index. Good oil, so for your fats. So oils are really inflammatory in the body. When the body breaks them down, it goes through an inflammatory pathway. That's any oil. So if there is one thing you take away from today, it's to change your oil. Avocado oil and olive oil are the two that when the body digests them, it does not go down the inflammatory pathway. Some people will say that olive oil and avocado oil are anti-inflammatory, which isn't entirely accurate. So to be anti-inflammatory, it needs to go down the pathway of correcting inflammation in the body, actually inflammation reduction. And it doesn't do that. It doesn't reduce inflammation in the body. It simply doesn't create inflammation. So if you're going to use an oil, those are the two. Again, sourcing is always a concern. A lot of oils on the market are mixed and they don't actually say that on the label. So what I've come to learn, if this is true or not, I'm sure it'll change, but sourceability. So if you can track where that olive oil came from. So it came from one region in Italy, it came from one area in Greece, one area in California. That is going to be a higher likelihood that that's a true olive oil or avocado oil. So just something to be aware of. And then really avoiding toxic ingredients. So this is where toxins and affect our hormones. So estrogen is really affected by pesticides, plastics, so BPA, things that are in the water, the obesogens that are in chemically processed foods. So when you look at an ingredient label, if you can't understand what they are, if it is some maltodextrin, if it is a chemical name, a long name that is difficult to pronounce, that's a processed food and that contains chemicals. Those chemicals are what is contributing to disease today and causing horrible havoc in our gut. So if you have issues with bloating, with constant pain, IBS, that is going to be a huge contributor to that. And so the best way to get back on track is you not only have to eat the right things, you need to not eat the wrong things. When you eat a lot of these chemicals and even things in high sugar, so like things that are with processed sugar, like corn syrup and all the dextrins, those things are going to cause overgrowth in your intestines. So it's not as simple as like, oh, I'm just treating myself to this small little thing. If it has chemicals, you're undoing the repair that you're trying to do. So you're impacting your healing. You're stopping your healing by continuing to eat those things. So that is really important. Our gut health is essential to our mental health as well as our physical health. So what I mean by that is when you're eating something, let's say you're eating broccoli and you also ate, a bunch of crackers that are highly processed and some other things that are highly processed, like a canned soup, for example. Okay. So you eat that and you ate the broccoli. Your body is not going to absorb the nutrients from the broccoli the same because your gut is altered by those other chemicals being with it. And it sets off inflammation in your intestines where things are absorbed. So you might be trying to do all these really good things, and it's negated by the fact that you still have all of this overgrowth in your gut of bad bacteria like candida, so yeast, that is hugely affected when you eat sugar, any type of sugar. But, having natural sugars like fruits, sweet potatoes, those things contain fiber, and that's going to help continue to grow the good gut bacteria that you need to break things down properly so your body can absorb them and you actually retain the nutrients and can pass it along to all the cells in your body to function properly. It's also the huge source. It makes neurotransmitters. So if you're dealing with anxiety, depression, you need, what do they put you on? They put you on an antidepressant that helps you make serotonin. And that's what your gut does, is it makes serotonin when you have good nutrients. And so if you're dealing with those types of mental health issues, all the more reason you really need the nutrient dense foods. So focusing on low carb during this phase, which is day 1 through 10. So as soon as you get your period for the next 10 days, eat low carb and but don't be afraid to include the good nutrient foods of fruits and vegetables. During this time, hunger is going to be less. So this is when you can really do the longer fasts. This is when you can do, well, a 72-hour fast, but there's different lengths that you can do. I think average is like 16 to 17 hours is a good starting point to throw in some fasting. And that would be, let's say you stop eating about 6 p.m., then you can start eating again. Oh no, I got to do the math. Then you can start eating again at about 11. And that would be a good 17-hour fast. And that would be a good way to just get you started. So the body can handle higher stress activities as well. So like we talked about, fasting can put on a little bit of stress on the body. So that's when you can do those fasts. Throw in a 24-hour fast once a week. Throw in a 48-hour fast once a month. Those are some tools. And then daily during this time for those 10 days, do the 17-ish fast. This is when you can really increase exercise. So this is when cardio is good. I'm not a huge cardio person, but HIIT workouts would be really good during this time. Anything that raises your heart rate and really gets you sweating, that's going to be tolerated well by the body and support estrogen production in the body. Now, the difficulty is perimenopause because your cycle is thrown off. You might not have a 28-day cycle regularly. Maybe you have a 15-day cycle and then a 32-day cycle. So it is difficult, and I really recommend getting a period tracker. A lot of them are free. One brand is Clue. It does have annoying pop-ups because it wants you to try and get you to pay for it, but it's really good to help you track. And you're going to start noticing things in your body as you're tracking and how you feel. And you're going to be able to start to tell, like, oh, I'm ovulating now, or I'm getting a little more moody and irritable. My period's coming. And so it really helps you be in tune with your body. And so you can make adjustments as needed. And that'll just come over time. That's not going to happen overnight, but this is a good starting point. So the other thing, and like I talked about with on depression, I wanted to expand on this a little bit. Right now, Seasonal depression is at an all-time high. We've had nothing but cloudy weather, although I think today is sunny, which is great. So there's two ways to help with this. One is taking vitamin D. Now, I'm not a huge supplement person, but if you do things in cycles, your body's going to respond to it much better than versus I'm taking a vitamin D supplement for my whole life. Your body just gets used to that. And again, if you don't have a good GI system with a proper absorption, you're not going to be absorbing, those supplements correctly anyway, and they're very processed. But that's another topic. Okay, so vitamin D is a precursor to making serotonin. So it's really, really beneficial, even if you're on an antidepressant that helps make serotonin. The vitamin D in your body is going to help produce that and make your medications more effective. So that's one suggestion. And we are chronically low in vitamin D, especially in Wisconsin and in the Midwest. The other thing is light therapy. So this is part of resetting your circadian rhythm. So those of you that have sleep issues, when you wake up in the morning, get by a window. You can buy lights if you want, light therapy lights. So the lumens that come out of one of the lights that you purchase is about the same amount of light that you get from a cloudy day. So it is still beneficial to sit by a window or be outside on a cloudy day. It's not gone to waste. So on a cloudy day, about 30 minutes right away in the morning. Lately, I have been super lazy, and luckily, my bed is right underneath the window. And so I just open the drapes and I continue to lay there. So really super lazy way. But what it starts to do is it tells your body to turn off melatonin and helps cortisol actually activate and start waking you up a little bit so you feel a little more alert. The other thing it does is it helps with serotonin production. Again, it's going to be helping you with those seasonal depression episodes. So really getting light early in the morning for 30 minutes is essential. If it's a sunny day and you're outside, 15 minutes is all you need. So to get that started. This also helps reset your circadian rhythm. So it tells your body that, okay, about 15, 16 hours from now, we're going to need to start producing melatonin again. So morning light is really important to getting good sleep at night. So really, that's the first 10 days is the power phase. You can push things, you can exercise hard, you can fast long, eat low carb. That's 10 days of your cycle. Sorry. Now, the next phase, she calls it the manifestation phase. This is ovulation. So this is for 5 days. This is day 10 through 5 on average. So this is where your body begins to break down estrogen and your body is starting to prepare for progesterone. And this is the highest level of testosterone that you have. So you might notice your libido is higher during this time. Another good way to tell if you are ovulating. This is where you really need to focus on your microbiome, your gut, and supporting your liver. So this is what's known as the 3 Ps. So you want to eat polyphenols, probiotics, and prebiotics. So that means cruciferous. Now, cruciferous vegetables are good throughout the whole month, especially raw. It really is cleansing for the liver. It has high fiber, and it has all of the amino acids that you need to build muscle, stay lean, and it gives all of the nutrients that your cells need to function properly. So you're going to hear me talk about cruciferous vegetables all the time. So this is a great time for salads. Other polyphenols are berries, bone broth, coffee. So these are great things to have during this time. Some bitter foods are also good. That would be lemon. Lemon water during this time is great. Ginger, dandelion tea. These really help the liver get out that sludge. I had talked the other day about your lymphatic system being one of the detox systems in the body to help remove toxins and help get rid of sickness. And if that's not functioning properly, the lymphatic system goes through the liver. And so it can get sludgy, okay, for lack of a better word. And we need to be able to keep it open and patent and flowing good. And this is one way to do that. Carrots, raw carrots are another great thing that binds with estrogen in your body, and then you can emit it. And so one of the main reasons of weight gain is we hold on to our hormones when we're not properly getting rid of them. So it is also a cycle of getting rid of things. So we produce estrogen the first 15 days. Well, now we need to get rid of it. And if we do not have a proper diet and lifestyle to get rid of it, we're going to store it. And that's going to be very difficult to get rid of. That's the belly fat. This is these 5 days, you want the 3 Ps, like I was saying. And the probiotic and prebiotic foods are any of the vegetables. It's high fiber. So it's either fiber that's feeding the good gut bacteria, or it is fiber to help move things through the gut. So high protein, lifting weights are really good during this time. That helps support testosterone as well as emitting testosterone. It builds, and then you need to release it and get rid of it. Lifting heavy during this time is awesome. This can be a time of anxiety. So maybe lower the caffeine during this time. Be aware of that. You may need to do a little bit more nurturing and a little more self-care. So some hot baths, being around community, like I talked about yesterday with the hormones, building up that oxytocin. So that's really going to help keep cortisol down, keep anxiety down. So that's for those 5 days. So now we're entering the later half of the cycle. So day 5 through 20, so these next 5 days, we return back to the power phase. So this is again where we really want to detox those excess hormones in the body. We're getting rid of estrogen and testosterone, and we need to support progesterone. So we're going to go back to low carb. We're going to go back to cardio. We want to sweat. Keeping things below 50 carbs, having the good fats, the good oil, avocados, olive oil, and then avoiding any toxic ingredients. So that's the first 20 days. Now it's the nurture phase. This is prepping for your period. This is building progesterone. And so this is hormone feasting, which I love and I hate. So it gives you an excuse to eat carbs. Now this needs to be nature's carbs. This isn't processed carbs. So it doesn't mean pasta, although sometimes I feel like that's what it means. And this means resting. You know, we blame ourselves as women, like, why am I craving chocolate? Why am I craving pasta? I just have all these food cravings, and I can tell my period's coming, and I'm irritable, and I have a busy schedule, and it feels too much. It feels overwhelming. That's when we need to support progesterone, and that's when we need to chill out. So exercise, it doesn't mean you stop, but it means you do walking, you do yoga, you do things that keep your body moving, but not at a strenuous pace. So you still need to move. That's essential. And nature's carbs would be rice, quinoa, sweet potatoes, amp up your fruits. What I don't like about this time is I can really get used to it. So it's really hard when I get my period to switch to going back to low carb. So it does make it challenging. But this is the time, if you're trying to lose weight, you want to keep it to like 100 carbs or less. If you're trying to maintain your weight, 200 net carbs or less. Still want to focus on protein, so good amounts of protein and nature's carbs. Good sources of magnesium are also helpful during this time, just because this could be a time of muscle cramping, difficulty sleeping. So dark chocolate, cacao are excellent sources. Dark chocolate does not mean a Reese's peanut butter cup. It means pure dark chocolate. So again, this is all the tricky part. Like, it sounds good at first, and then you're like, oh, but the foods I really like are still crappy and I can't eat those. So this will help teach you a healthy relationship with food. This is cycling for our body, for our hormones. That's going to keep us balanced, feeling good, help lower cortisol, decrease anxiety, decrease depression symptoms, and help our gut function the best, so that we don't have those painful symptoms, diarrhea, bloating, all of those uncomfortable things. And this isn't going to happen because you do it well one cycle. This really needs to be a lifestyle. Um, if we only knew this when I was a teenager, my whole relationship with food would be so different. We think about, okay, we've got sports and we're on the go. So here, grab a granola bar, grab a protein bar, because you hear those buzzwords. And the difficulty is things are marketed to us and they're not good for us. So you can hear people and doctors talk about, have a protein bar, have a protein shake. Those are highly processed and full of chemicals. They are not good for you in any way, shape, or form. So, and to think that, well, if I'm eating a ton of vegetables and not very much meat, vegetables have a ton of protein and they have amino acids. So even if they don't have the high protein content, they have the amino acid makeup, which is what our body breaks down protein to anyway. So it's really a misnomer. What you need to eat for is cellular function. And that's going to be the things that I have mentioned today. So hopefully this helps. It again, I keep telling myself just because I don't like this information doesn't mean it isn't true. And it is a journey. I am still learning, figuring out what works for me, what doesn't, and just learning how to feed my body the best. So I hope this helps. I really encourage you guys to keep going with the fast. Let me know how you're doing. And as always, reach out to me anytime through Facebook Messenger or my email. It's beamhealth@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody.